Let's unpack what happened to Jean at the Hellfire Gala.
Polaris in the comic books recently is depicted with her coffee. Like, what is your ideal morning coffee situation?
When I do drink coffee, it's a black coffee hot with one Splenda. And I believe that's also what Lorna would drink in real life.
A Daddy Cable.
Daddy Cable. I would love that. I would love.
Shout out to the Powers of X-Men podcast.
Hottest writers at Marvel Comics right now.
The Pretender's death. Like, be
Right, familia, Power of X-Men, we're with. Do you love Power of X-Men?
I love Power of X-Men. Of course I do. Do I? Yes, I do.
Boom, what's up, familia? Dayspring here to talk about Jean Grey at the Hellfire Gala 2023. And this should go without saying, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. If you don't want to know what happened to Jean Grey at the Hellfire Gala this year, go away now. I won't take it personally, I promise. But 3, 2, 1, Jean Grey is dead again. And okay, so I did get the tea that Jean wasn't going to be coming out of this alive. And I was like, okay, well, let's see how she's going to die. And I have to tell you, on paper, it's pretty epic to think that Nimrod comes in, takes out Omega Level 2, which is Iceman, and then asks, where is Omega Level 1? And that's Jean. And Jean is like, I'm right here, you murderer. And Jean is the last thing standing between Nimrod and the destruction of the mutant race. That is epic. And I love a good epic story, right? I've said this before. I loved Jean's death in, well, okay, wait. Let me rephrase that, because I didn't like how she was killed in Planet X-Men, but in Planet X, excuse me, not Planet X-Men, who's one of our favorite accounts. I liked in Planet X her death, because then she awoke 150 years in the future, found out that, mutant kind went to ruins because Scott couldn't really get over her death, so she had to reach out into the past and psychically suggests that Emma and Scott come together. I love that. That is an epic story. So if you're telling me at the Hellfire Gala, Jean is Omega Level Mutant 1 and Nimrod is coming for her specifically, and she is the last hope between mutant kind and annihilation, I love it. Let her fall, tell a good story. Tell a great story like that. I would love to see it. But I think my qualm was really with the actual execution of the story. I think on paper, the story probably sounded better than it actually was executed. And one of the things that I didn't like specifically, and we touched upon this in our general Hellfire Gala review, and this is why I didn't like her death in Planet X so much, was how easily Jean is killed. Like, Moira just comes up from behind her and stabs her with the otherworld knife, and then she becomes a skeleton. It doesn't really make sense. It feels a little too easy. And I know, the dialogue, the narrative dialogue suggests that it's because Moira is a robot and she can just infiltrate, a psychic and kill her really quickly. I think Jean at this point is a bit more powerful than someone coming up from behind her and stabbing her. It just seems too easy. Why didn't she just die with Nimrod? I would have been fine if Nimrod would have just been blast. That's it. Because it's fucking Nimrod, right? So Moira coming up from behind her and stabbing her just felt a little too easy, a little too irrelevant. I don't know. It's almost like the writers overthought that aspect. They were just like, how can we kill Jean? It will make sense because Jean is supposed to be the most powerful mutant on Krakoa. So let's make sure she's stabbed with an otherworld knife. And also, I'm done with Otherworld. I don't know how you guys feel, familia. I am done talking about Otherworld. I am done with the concept of Otherworld. Ten of Swords should have been the last time we ever heard of Otherworld. But so our God Queen dying by being stabbed in the back by Moira You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't like it. So let's recap what happened to Jean at the Hellfire Gala this year before we dive into what the future could possibly hold for her. So the Hellfire Gala is underway. Cyclops goes to the treehouse back in New York, and we saw on Free Comic Book Day, he confronts Captain Krakoa. Captain Krakoa throws him off the ledge. He survives. I don't know how Cyclops survived being thrown off I don't know how tall building, but he survives. He can't feel his legs. He says that in the ambulance when Jean is trying to telepathically contact him. But Cyclops is gone. He's at the treehouse. Jean is like, okay, it's time to announce the winners of who's going to be elected on the X-Men. And it turns out everyone is elected. Anyone who was nominated was elected. But oh no, Jubilee's like, look at that. It's a shooting star for good luck, which, oh God, the disrespect to Jubilee that you would make her that daft. That she'd be like, oh, look at a shooting star. And then, no, actually, it's Nimrod who comes in and squishes her. That to me is so disrespectful. But the boom from Nimrod being deployed from space should have killed everyone at the Hellfire Gala. But Jean was able to quickly react and use her telekinetic like blast or telekinetic shield or whatever to hold the blast in. Again, that just makes it unrealistic that someone could just come up from behind her and stab her. If she can literally hold a blast from space, together within seconds, mere seconds, being caught surprise, I think she would have survived Moira coming up from behind her and stabbing her. Again, I know it's laced with the otherworld juju that inhibits her powers. Just so ridiculous to me. But again, I think Jean would have sensed Moira on some level. She would have turned around. Again, we talked about this with Flink. Make these characters cool, right? Give them a cool death. Don't give them a lame death like being stabbed in the back with a kitchen knife. What the fuck is that? Oh, speaking of kitchen knife, yes. There's thunder because it's thunderstorming because the world is mourning for our God Queen today. But also, I'm podcasting from our kitchen because everything we had to move everything from the first floor upstairs. So, and this is a nice background. And you know what? It's been a long time coming. So if I'm looking to the side, it's not because I'm looking at myself, it's because I'm looking at our kitchen. But the blast happens because Nimrod comes. Jean's able to contain it. She is thrown outside with Juggernaut. She then uses Juggernaut as a bullet to hit Nimrod, and Jean then stops everything from happening because Nimrod's like, fuck this, I'm going to blast the gala. And as the gala's tumbling over, the tower that the gala is being held on is tumbling over. Jean holds everyone psychically together. She says, hey, that's it. I'm sorry for everyone who's here, who's had to deal with this kind of fallout. We are no longer going to tolerate this kind of violence against us. Orcus, no one else is dying tonight. And that's when Moira comes in from behind and stabs her. And as Jean is dying, she reaches out to Firestar and says that she was able to get into Dr. Stasis's mind. She found an opening there, and in lieu of eradicating all of his mind and memory because of what he did to Scott, she has decided that she's going to implant a memory in Dr. Stasis and Orcus that Firestar has always been a traitor since before she was even nominated to the X-Men. So she says, I have to go now. Mutants are going to fear and hate you, Firestar, but you need to stay strong. And then we pan out and it's an image of Jean's skeleton. For whatever reason, this otherworld knife caused her to be a skeleton. I mean, she just doesn't die. She's a skeleton. She rots away to a skeleton, similar to how we saw her in Phoenix Endsong. And then she goes to Cyclops and she says, Cyclops, I have to go. I loved you. And then she goes to Wolverine and she says, Logan, they almost won tonight, but there's still hope. I love you. I need you to do what you do best. And he goes on berserker mode and starts slashing through, all the Orcus agents where he's at by the gate. So I think we all know that Jean isn't really dead. Okay, I need to rant about this because we were told that resurrection as a literary concept was created for the writers to be forced to tell other kinds of stories, right? That there was more stakes in the story than just death, because death, especially with the X-Men, is a revolving door. And let me tell you, from Ten of Swords to Marauders to Judgment Day to the Hellfire Gala, it's only been a few years, and yet death is still a central part of every X-Men story. So right off the bat, I'm a little annoyed that you're killing off all these characters again, and death is like the huge stake here, right? So, with that in mind, I am severely irked that once again Jean Grey is killed off in a story, and I don't think we're gonna have to wait 13, 16 years for her to return. I mean, everyone likes to like rag on Jean, saying, "Oh, it's always going to be a Jean Grey book," right? Well, Jean Grey was dead for about 16 years in the comics, from the time of Grant Morrison's New X-Men to from Here Comes Tomorrow. Well, let's give it Phoenix Endsong. Phoenix Endsong came in 2005, right? To X-Men Red / Phoenix Resurrection: The Return of Jean Grey, which was about 2018. I want to say. So Jean Grey was dead for a very long time, and so for her to be dead again, I'm like, but let's just put all of that to rest, because I think she's going to be completely fine. And some of the initial reactions I'm seeing online to Jean's death has been, "Oh my God," and people are sending me DMs like, "I'm not okay. I need to talk about this." It's really endearing, because we care about these characters so much. These characters feel like people to us. That's what I think make the X-Men particularly special, is that we bond with these characters. So seeing a character like Jean die, you're even though in the back of your head she's going to come back, you're still flipping out. So that's why I wanted to do this video, to talk about where she's going to be. We know she's getting her own mini. Do not fret. She is getting her own mini next month. And we are told in this mini, she is going to have to look into her past in order to find out where it all went wrong and the keys into saving humanity. So I figure we can go through the marketing copy for the Jean Grey mini to quench any of our uneasiness seeing the corpse of our God Queen and sort of think about where we're going to see her next. Okay, so for Jean Grey issue 1, the solicitation copy, which we've read solicitation copy on this podcast before, and we find it hysterical, but let's hope this is a bit more serious. Superstar creators take Jean Grey's legacy to fiery new heights. After the events of the Hellfire Gala, Jean's life is in shambles. Mutantkind is in dire straits, and there's nothing this founding X-Man can do. She'll have to save herself first, and that means looking into her past for the moment when it all went wrong, in a desperate attempt to save her and all of Krakoa's future. Legendary writer Louise Simonson returns to the X-Men with a story full of fan-favorite moments, heart-trending revelations, and pulse-pounding devastations. So that's issue 1. Issue 2 is the darkest period in Jean Grey's history. The Dark Phoenix has haunted Jean Grey since it emerged from the Jamaica Bay. But what if the Phoenix had chosen someone else? The love story of Cyclops and Jean Grey is one of the most beloved in Marvel Comics history. Now witness a legendary creator break their hearts and their minds. But this is no what if. Jean Grey is not where she is meant to be, and neither is the rest of mutant kind. Stunning secrets will be revealed as Jean Grey lays the groundwork for her next shocking appearance in Fall of X. All right, issue 3. The one you've been waiting for. Nearly 35 years later, Louise Simonson returns to the events of Inferno, one of the greatest battles in Marvel Comics history. I'm sorry. Jean Grey versus Madeline Pryor reshaped the world of the X-Men and set bombs that are still going off today. But Jean is not the woman she used to be, and neither is the Phoenix power that has manipulated both her and her clone. I wish they wouldn't have said her and her clone in the marketing copy. Maddie's so much more than just a clone. Lost in a mad world and separated from every ally, what desperate move will Jean make to restore balance? All right. So those are the first 3 issues of the Jean Grey solicitation. So that's issues 1, 2, and 3. So I think it's pretty clear here that Jean Grey is not dead, that she is in the white hot room having to relive moments in her past to try to find answers. I mean, to what degree? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't have any tea on the Jean Grey series. I have no tea on it. But I am shocked that so many people are like, oh, it's a flashback series and stuff like that. That it's just going to be, like a retelling of her origin story. And don't get me wrong. It sounds like it is a retelling of her origin story. But based off of the preview pages we've seen and the solicitation copy, it seems that Jean, after the Hellfire Gala, has to now save herself, and she has to look into her past. So I think she's going to be going through her past. And we've seen this already in the preview pages. We see it, what I'm assuming is the present tense 616 Jean Grey looking at past seminal moments in her life, of which include quite heavily when Beast came back and brought the 05 to the present with the events of All New X-Men. So right there, we know that Jean is still a conscious being. Again, the only thing that makes sense is that she would be in the White Hot Room. We've known this in previous issues that dealt with the Phoenix, that when a Phoenix host dies, they automatically go into the White Hot Room. And we saw that especially in the Jean Grey series. This is, of course, assuming they're mining their lore that that Marvel themselves created. I wouldn't give them all the benefit of the doubt, to be honest with you, but I think this marketing copy is steering us to the idea that Jean is in the White Hot Room and she has to go look at her past. And that's exactly what happened Here Comes Tomorrow. When she woke up 150 years in the future, realized mutant kind had gone to shambles, she reaches out to Scott in the past and telepathically pushes him to be with Emma. So the marketing copy is really promising. Another marketing copy that's very promising is the Fall of X map, where it says Jean Grey's whereabouts are unknown. They could have said she was dead. They could have said mutant Omega Mutant 1 deceased, right? But it's not. Same with Bobby, right? It's spoiler alerts again, if you don't want to know what happened to Bobby, but Bobby is seemingly killed in this issue, but no, he's going to have his own mini, and the Fall of X map confirms that he is alive and well and in Antarctica. I think it's kind of late, but Jean Grey, we can assume, has ascended into the White Hot Room, another dimension. For those of you who don't know what the White Hot Room is, think of it, literally the White Hot Room is the center of the M'Kraan crystal, and that's where all Phoenix hosts kind of like go to gather their power and do universal cosmic work. Think of it like the afterlife, but for Phoenixes, and in there they work to restore balance in the universe and life and death and rebirth. It's always been nebulous, to be very honest with you. They've never really flat out said what the White Hot Room is. We've only seen glimpses of it throughout the comics in the last like 20 years, but it did start with Grant Morrison in Here Comes Tomorrow. And I love it. I love the White Hot Room. I said I wanted a mini of a Phoenix core working in the White Hot Room and working on cosmic levels. Anyways, so we also know in Immortal X-Men, Irene had a vision of things to come. Among them was Sins of Sinister, Judgment Day. And if you look in the corner, because a lot of people forget to look in the corner, there is Jean, Phoenix empowered, overlooking the earth. So I think there's a really big shot that as Jean died, the Phoenix who's been circling her, because we know since Judgment Day that she was told that Jean is a Phoenix and the Phoenix is Jean. There's no discrepancy between them. And Terry Dodson was told in his variant cover that he had to draw a Jean, that he was instructed by editorial to have a Phoenix effect over her. So I think it's very safe to assume right now that as Jean died, the Phoenix came to her and lifted her into the White Hot Room, and now they have to find a way to save mutant kind. And look at her corpse, right? She's a skeleton, and it looks like it's turning to ash. And I do believe that the script said that Jean turns to ash. Ash is like a phoenix, right? So she goes to the ashes. So I think it's pretty clear that she's going to be reborn as Phoenix. I think this is all lending itself to that Phoenix narrative we're talking about here. But yeah, you just have to see her right there. I mean, I know it's kind of making fun, like, why is she a skeleton here? And it's because that as she's dying, she's turning to ashes like a phoenix, like dying only to be reborn from her ashes. I have to tell you, one of the things that never made sense to me in Phoenix Resurrection was, okay, Jean Grey, from a publishing editorial standpoint, was dead for about 13 to 16 years, right? Why did the Phoenix, who has come to Earth multiple times since her death in Planet X, why did the Phoenix choose now to resurrect her? There was no reason given. If you read Phoenix Resurrection, the Phoenix just resurrected Jean on what appears to be a whim. There is no actual reason why she was resurrected. The Jean Grey mini at the time didn't even answer that. We knew the Phoenix was coming for Teen Jean, but why was it coming for Teen Jean? And then it was adult Jean who sort of was like, no, stop it, she's not ready. And when it couldn't have Teen Jean, it went to a resurrected adult Jean. But why did it want Jean in the first place? And also, wouldn't Jean already be bonded with the Phoenix in the White Hot Room? I don't know, but I'm hoping what this is going to do is going to answer those questions. The Phoenix is back with Jean and it's going to say, I'm sorry, this is why I brought you back, because I saw something big was going to happen and I needed to be with my prime host, right? So, Jean and the Phoenix finally bond there and they have to find a way to solve this mutant crisis. At the Hellfire Gala, we did see the five adorned in Phoenix imagery. Why? It's not explained. And listen, I get it. Hope is mutant messiah. She was empowered by the Phoenix. But for all intents and purposes, Hope is divorced from the Phoenix. They have done a very great job of not having Hope and Jean together, of not having Hope and the Phoenix together. So why all of a sudden do we have the Phoenix imagery there? I wish that would have sort of been explained. Now, if Jean does come back with the Phoenix, are they going to do another Dark Phoenix saga eventually? Oh, I hope not. I hope we don't get another Dark Phoenix saga. I think the perfect host that has been showed for the Phoenix has been Rachel. You don't have to have Jean so insanely powerful with the Phoenix. The Phoenix can be like, well, I'm going to be in the White Hot Room. I'm going to be sailing the cosmos, but I'm going to leave you with a sliver of my power. Jean works with the Phoenix. I know a lot of people don't like that. I know a lot of people are like, no. But I think if you just make sure her power levels are in check and you don't make her go Dark Phoenix, maybe that's the way to go with rendering Jean and the Phoenix. But that is my supporting evidence, Familia, of what I think is going to happen with Jean. And the marketing copy says that this mini is setting her up for her next shocking appearance in Fall of X. Is she going to resurrect the 250,000 mutants that were killed through the meat grinder? I personally don't think they were put through a meat grinder. If you see the panels, you see the Realm of X team also going through the portal, through the Krakoan gate. You also see the 5 being pushed by Exodus through the Krakoan gate. I don't think they would kill them editorially from a story editorial standpoint. I'm telling you, I used to work in book publishing. This is my editorial hat working. You do not kill off all of the world's mutant population off screen. Like, oh, they went through the gate, and you're like, okay. And then Xavier's like, I can't sense them. Xavier's overreacting, which is weird for him that he wouldn't strategize a bit. But those mutants are not dead. They're in the realm of X, wherever that book is taking place. I can't remember off the top of my head. And Ileana and Marrow and everyone is going to have to go with them. But I think Jean will somehow find all of them and bring them back to Earth. I don't think she's going to resurrect them. I think she'll bring them back to Earth. I think she'll restore mutant kind as a Phoenix. But so that's my supporting evidence. Familia, I'm sorry that we're starting off this gloomy Wednesday with Jean Grey's death. Let us know your thoughts and feels below in the comments, and you can slide into our DMs. Be kind to each other today, but just know that this is temporary, that Jean will come back, that we're not going to get a multi-decades long hiatus from our God Queen, and we'll be covering the fallout of the Hellfire Gala extensively in the coming weeks.